Or we just dress more provocatively. This is the podcast I want to be a part of.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Big Brain Show. I'm about to show you something for real.
All right, I'm going to clip that at the beginning of the episode.
I forgot we were recording.
Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome into LeatherBrainz, your host here, Slapdog, and it is a full crew here today. We have Alan Casanova Castro and Scotty Del Rey, and week 3 of NFL football is not in the books. Not quite yet, but it's coming.
Almost.
It's coming. So the things we're going to be discussing today, maybe Bryce Young was the problem in Carolina as the Red Rifle smacks the Raiders. Ooh. The Seahawks are undefeated with a 2-game lead on the NFC West, just like we had all predicted. And is Sam Darnold the MVP of the NFL so far? Some say yes. We say listen to our thoughts and enjoy the episode here at LeatherBrainz, where we will discuss that and so much more. But before we do, we have got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Guys, I'm telling you, I have been telling you, and I will continue to tell you to go to ericashealthypet.com to find all of the treats, the snacks, the topical solutions for your loved animal. Whether it be chicken jerky, beef jerky, cheese bites, or itch relief shampoo, use code LB20 at ericashealthypet.com for 20% off any of these products and more. That should be the only place you are going to get treats and topical solutions for your loved one. Once again, Erica's Healthy Pet, use code LB20 for 20% off your order. Let's start with this, boys. What happened to the Browns? What in the world happened to the Browns? Because they looked really good last season. In fact, they were kind of a dark horse team going into this season, because all of last season they were playing with their backups. They were playing with their second string offense, and they were getting the job done. And then they lost to the Giants this week, 21-15. They looked bad. This whole game was a battle of the which quarterback wants to try and make an argument to have a longer career. Daniel Jones won this one.
Oh, hell yeah, Daniel Jones won this one, brother. You know, I want you to disregard everything I've said over the last 2 episodes about Daniel Jones, because before that I was right, I think.
Yeah, you were riding the Daniel Jones train.
Yeah, no, in all honesty, I mean, Daniel Jones, he had 230-some yards, a couple touchdowns, no picks. But if you watch that game, if you were Daniel Jones, you were thanking the Lord Jesus Christ that he gave you Malik Neighbors, because Daniel Jones had so many wide open touchdown passes that Malik Neighbors had to do some crazy backflip circus catch to make, and he pulled it off, luckily. And it makes Daniel Jones look a little bit better in the box score, but to those who watched the game, they were not fooled.
Yeah, I saw people on Twitter talking about, is Malik Neighbors going to single-handedly save Danny's job and keep him the quarterback of the Giants? And there was a lot of mixed emotions, because I think so many Giants fans are like, we're so out on this guy. And they were like, damn it. Like, the stats are going to make him stay because Neighbors looks so freaking good to start. But you asked about the Browns. And I want to go back to the Browns for a second. And there's one very obvious difference in this team from last year to this year. And that is, they don't have Joe Flacco. They don't have Joe Flacco. That's the difference. They need Joe, whoever Joe is.
I don't know what's creepier, the fact that we're wanting Joe Flacco to come back and play for the Browns, or you guys both said it simultaneously as if it was one.
Well, you missed rehearsal this morning, so that's why it seemed weird. We attended rehearsal.
My apologies.
The NFL scriptwriter sent us the script too.
Deshaun Watson is so bad. He's so bad at football, and I don't get it, because if you watched him back in 2018, 2019, like before all the crap had happened, like, he was a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, like, easily. He looked really great in Father Time, I guess, as well as maybe the mentals. Like, that whole Brown Stadium was just actively booing him, and I'm like, what a terrible situation. Look, don't get me wrong, I feel no sympathy towards Deshaun Watson, but like, when you like, if you were to go to your job every day and you walk into the office and the entire office just boos you for walking in and they hate you, it's like that makes your job probably even a little bit more difficult. So I mean, the Browns, what do they do? Do they get rid of Deshaun Watson? Do they bench Deshaun Watson? Because he's owed a
Where
shit
was
ton
that
of
girl
money.
that had that? She was going to sue him for like naughty touching or whatever at her apartment. Whatever she said, whatever happened with Deshaun. Wasn't there some? Is that happening?
There's been like 20
but there was a
allegations of
recent.
this. There was a recent one, but then I think they found, well, so there was a conversation that was being had in NFL space where essentially the Browns were looking for a way to get rid of him, and they could find that in somehow the way his contract is written, if there was any new allegations that were like came to light that were accurate, they would have the ability to essentially cut him and not owe him any money. So there, and whether it's true or not, I don't know how much ground there is to stand on here, but they were saying that the Browns had kind of planted this to
They need to push that
get
button.
him out.
Whatever that button is, they need to press that button right now. Just do that.
Save you like 150
just do
mil.
that. Just be like, oh yeah, you know what, everybody, we're right. He did it again. The diddler's out. Like, we need to get him out of
Get
here.
him out of here.
The Tiddler's out.
I like, get him out.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this the worst contract in NFL history?
Price wise, it has to
Gotta
be.
be.
Yeah,
It
I'm
has
sure
to
you
be.
could like
So
Russell Wilson comes to mind,
pure
but
dollars.
once again, the
pure
pricing
dollars,
doesn't.
It has to be just with the amount of money you're talking.
it's all guaranteed.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, with this loophole that we're discussing, maybe not, but on paper, it's all guaranteed. They're like, yeah, we haven't seen this guy play football. He's been diddling people. Let's just give him however much money, millions of dollars, guaranteed, and we'll just see what happens. We'll just roll the dice. Meanwhile, Baker
I don't
Mayfield's
know.
out here slinging it.
Well, yeah, and that makes it almost look worse. And I think that we're gonna have a trend throughout this entire episode today of talking about quarterbacks like that should, for all intents and purposes, be done in the NFL. And it really goes to show how key good coaching is. So we'll put a little bookmark in that, because I think that this is going to be a pretty consistent conversation as we continue to embark on this episode today, of just how important good coaching has been to see the revival of players. Going back to Daniel Jones very quickly, I think he stays.
I don't know.
Depending, and I think it. Okay, let me say this. I think it depends on where they are in the draft.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Daniel Jones is a good quarterback, but I'm saying, what are
I mean,
your
they're going to keep him until they
let's-
find something else. If they haven't found anything else,
Let's say they have pick 18. Let's say they win a couple more games. I mean, they just beat the Browns here. So let's say they have pick, I don't know, we'll even say 12, 10 this upcoming year. That still probably doesn't get you a quarterback. So you either have to sell the farm or you roll with Jones and try and make it the best that you can be. I don't know.
The problem
it's
is,
an
what
ugly
does
situation.
selling the farm even look like for this team? Do they even have that option? Do they have pieces that would be necessary?
It'd have to be picks.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd have to be picks.
yeah,
it's just they're in a tough spot.
yeah.
They're in a tough spot.
And this
with
isn't
that
a good year
contract.
for quarterbacks, anyways. If that's what the Giants' really only hope is that one of these other veteran-ish QBs are on the market for some reason, or a team gets fed up with them.
Yeah.
Like that's really going to be their only shot. So they're just going to have to keep him until that. And then until that time, Daniel Jones is basically Malik Neighbors' bodyguard, making sure he doesn't involve himself in any slip and falls or roll his ankle unnecessarily. Like he's just going to be protecting him at all costs, because that's basically the only way he saves his job.
Do you seen that video?
Well-
Was it Malik Neighbors using the jugs machine, but the jugs machine was like lobbing the ball at his feet, and they're like, "Yeah, he's got to practice for Daniel Jones as a quarterback." I mean, that was a meme for a while, but holy shit, was that real this week? And we're like, Daniel Jones just needs a superstar in order to even survive in this league.
Yeah.
Well, he got one. I mean, Malik Neighbors through 3 weeks has looked absolutely insane. Or 2 weeks, rather. Has looked absolutely insane. I mean, he's looked so good. And he is the Giants offense. Welcome in, rookie. Like, you are the immediate impact player that this team needed because Saquon Barkley's gone. Alan, you mentioned, this is a bad year for quarterbacks. Not for Sam Darnold.
No.
Like, Sam Darnold, Vikings win this game 34-7 against the Texans. And just like we all had on our bingo cards, and we knew that we were going to put the chip on the table, Vikings are 3-0. The Vikings are looking good. I didn't see this happen. I thought the Vikings were going to be the worst team in the division.
Are they the best? Are they the best looking 3-0 team you think so far? Just so far, just how they've looked through 3 games playing. Like, do you think, would you put them?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say legitimately, and I know that we're going to talk about the Chiefs at some point. It's coming. But, I think...
Nice.
I know. But we're going to talk about the Chiefs, and I don't think the Chiefs have looked great these last 3 games. Obviously, they've won the game, and I don't want to go on a Chiefs talk just yet. But all's to say, I was thinking about this today, and I'm like, what teams would compete with the Chiefs right now? Like, what teams look good right now? And obviously, the Vikings have come to mind because they're tearing apart these teams that they shouldn't be winning. They shouldn't be. Brian Flores and what he's doing with that defense is absolutely electric, because he is completely changed the identity of that defense. They look good. Sam Darnold, once again, you want to talk about coaching. Sam Darnold's been bebopping around the NFL for a while now and has had no success. He comes to the Vikings, and they're now 3-0, and yeah, he's got Justin Jefferson. I get it. So he's got an elite upper echelon wide receiver to kind of help bail him out of situations. But you can't take away from Sam Darnold how good he has played these last 3 games.
Yeah,
you can't.
This is as you kind of alluded to at the top. This is coaching. I mean, this is exactly what we talked about in the offseason when we said, I don't know, I think Sam Darnold might have some success here. Look at the weapons he's got. He hasn't even had Jordan Addison yet. So this is an incomplete offense, and they're still lighting it up. And it's because Sam Darnold now has an opportunity to not only have weapons, not only have a good defense by his side, but also have the beneficiary of a solid coaching staff. Sam Darnold, I'm not going to pretend like he's some superstar. I think he's a role player in the league, but when you have a role player with good pieces and a good coach and a good defense, you're going to find success. And this defense looks like it might be the best defense in the NFL through 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild to say, but it looks 100% real.
Yeah, this game, when you were looking, if you weren't watching it and you're just checking the score updates, this was one of the games. There's a couple other we'll probably talk about, but this was one of the games where you're like, what the hell? Like, you assume somebody's hurt. You assume something catastrophic happened, and when you realize it was just a good old-fashioned NFL beatdown, you're like, "This is."
They were missing Joe Mixon.
Well, yeah, this is not what you expected. Listen how everybody was talking about the Texans before the season. Like, this is the Texans are supposed to be doing right now what the Vikings are currently doing. Like, this is what everybody thought how the Texans were going to be looking. And this morning, I was listening to some NFL banter, and they were talking about Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold is one of 3 quarterbacks to currently do what he's doing, and that is go start on a new team, start that season 3-0, and have at least 8 touchdown passes. He's one of 3. The other 2 were Kurt Warner with the Rams and Matthew Stafford with the Rams. Both went to Super Bowls. And I think this is a small sample size, but if you're a Vikings fan, you're like, okay, wait a second. I definitely thought this season was
you're drinking
long
the Kool-Aid
gone. Now you're like, okay, how far can this go? Obviously they're in a super tough division, but this is quite the turnaround for somebody that I think for years everybody had thrown dirt on as a quarterback. He was seeing ghosts.
And it's 3 weeks too.
He was doing all this stuff back in the day. Now it's look at us.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, we always have to stop ourselves from overreacting, but this is now 3 weeks. I mean, we have 3 full games of data now, and that's not to say, obviously, it's going to be indicative of the rest of the season, but it's like we can start being a little more confident that these guys know what they're doing, and that it's not a fluke that they're putting up points and able to perform on defense. I mean, this is a legitimate team at this point in time, and this division just got even more difficult.
Yeah.
I think for me, I look at the schedule, and that to me has kind of made me a little bit more comfortable with saying that the Vikings could be real. Because, and look, the Vikings played the Giants week 1. That to me was not surprising because the Giants are a bad team and they won. The 49ers, the week before last in week 2, I mean, the Vikings barely beat them. And the 49ers, Alan, you and I talked about it last week. We watched God bleed, or I watched God bleed, that I was like, okay, is that a fluke? Right. But then I see them beat the Texans 34-7. And I'm like, okay, I have a lot of respect for the 49ers. And I was like, is that a fluke? Watching them beat the Texans as handily as they did, now I'm starting to think maybe it's not. Right. And then to Scotty's credit, like, I think that holds some ground because I do have a lot of respect for the Texans. I do think they're a really good team. And to watch the Vikings come out and beat the crap out of them, CJ Stroud looked off his game.
That's the Brian Flores defense.
In this last game.
He's been doing it for forever, and we kind of forgot about it because he sucks so bad as a head coach and almost ruined Tua. And now we're like, oh, wait, this guy actually knows what he's doing on defense. And quarterbacks have already come out and said, I don't know what to do against this defense right now. Like, it's just they disguise. I think they lead the league in pressures, and they lead the league in backing away from pressures. So, like, this is just a team that is just dead set on confusing the shit out of opposing quarterbacks, and it's fucking working.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's Vikings, I think, are here. Who are not here, the Bucs, maybe Baker Mayfield. Maybe Baker Mayfield is not here to stay. Through 2 weeks, we thought we were watching some history unfold, and then we did for the Broncos. The Broncos beat the Bucs 26-7. I don't think the Bucs are going to win the NFC South. I think a lot of people were talking about. I think there's another team that we'll talk about that I think is primed to potentially do that. But what do we think about Bo Nix? I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, but what do you guys? We buying into the Sean?
This
Payton
is what I
offense
thought
here?
the Broncos were going to look like the first 2 weeks, where they're a little more loose. They're kind of running around. They're throwing it. They're just kind of playing free. And Bo Nix threw the ball 36 times. He didn't throw any touchdowns, but they were moving the ball. They're doing what they needed to do. The defense looked really good, and so I think the more surprising to me was that this happened in Tampa Bay. Like, I think the Broncos playing at home, maybe you can see them get up for it, but going on the road and playing like this was certainly shocking. This is the week for me where it's like, I don't know what to believe anymore. Like, which through the 3 weeks do I believe outside of, like we just discussed with the Vikings? Like, other than that, other than a few teams, I don't know what to believe. Everything was upside down. Everything looked off. I would have bet the farm that the Buccaneers handily win this game, and then they looked like crap. I would have bet the Texans probably would have won in Minnesota, and they didn't. And then we had, just like the Ravens and other teams were like, I just don't know what to believe anymore out of these teams. And this is one of those. I don't know. I think we're going to have to wait till next week again. Like, can Bo Nix do this again before we can make any definitive statements about it? But this is more what I thought of what it was going to look like through the first 2 weeks.
I think it's going to be week by week. And honestly, I largely think it's going to be dependent on Sean Payton and what he draws up for whatever defense they're playing. Because I think Sean Payton has the capacity to overcoach or overthink the game plan. And especially with a rookie quarterback, they are particularly susceptible to that. So I think we're going to see Bo Nix have dud games. We're going to see him come out and look like, oh, okay, this guy's got some potential. We saw it throughout the preseason too. I mean, and obviously they're not playing first-string defenses, but the preseason we're like, oh, Bo Nix looks pretty good. Then week 1 and week 2 come around and we're like, oh yeah, this is the Bo Nix that we kind of thought. And then week 3, he looks pretty good again. So it's all going to be dependent on the game plan. I think this Broncos team overall is just not a very good team, and it's going to be dependent on the game plan, how they execute, and that's going to vary so drastically week by week depending on the opponent. And we also have to remember the Bucs have a lot of injuries still on defense, so they're not the same Bucs defensive unit that we're used to.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield was sacked 7 times. You're not going to win very many games getting sacked that many times.
I think the Broncos are better than we're giving them credit for. Like, and that is not. Look, I hate the Broncos. I hate Sean Payton. I think he's a scumbag piece of crap. But you look at what they're. Week 1, play the Seahawks. They lose 26-20. Week 2, they play the Steelers. They lose 6-13. This week they play the Bucs, who have been on a rampage the previous 2 weeks. They beat them 26-7. The next games are the Jets, Raiders, Chargers, and Saints. There's a chance that they win against the Raiders and the Chargers. I really do think that. Like, they've been in these games. And the Steelers' defense is no joke. Offensively, they struggle. And then the Seahawks have looked pretty decent, too. So, like, all to say, Alan, I think you were probably right on the Broncos. And I think that it's just taking a little while for them to warm up. I do think, kind of like what Scotty said, I think this is going to be how does the game plan work out? But I think that the Broncos are a little bit better than their record is showing. They've been in all these games.
Well, the thing about the AFC West generally right now is, even the Chiefs, as we'll talk about, don't look great. And so I really think that any one of these teams has the ability to beat any other one of these teams. And because they play each other so often, I think we're going to talk about the Chargers in a second. This is my hot take on the Chargers. We're going to get a little bit of false hope out of all of these teams because they're going to be in games you don't expect them to be. They're going to dominate games you don't expect just because of the nature of this division. So I still think overall, when you compare them to the Broncos to an actual team, I think they're bad. When you compare them to the teams that they're going to be playing repeatedly throughout the season, I think they can compete. So I think we're going to get a lot of false hope out of this team as well as the Chargers.
You mentioned dominating. Let's talk about Malik Willis. Because that guy, once again, this is another prime example of having a good coach. Malik Willis can run the ball and he can pass the ball and he can beat the Titans 30-14. The team that had drafted him and then sent him on his merry way. He beat the crap out of him. So I don't know if we need to spend too much time on this game either, but I think this is just another great example of coaching matters. Coaching matters way more than people fully want to give it credit for, because they want to put a lot of the chips into the athlete and how good they are. Don't get me wrong. That certainly plays a part. But coaching is key to the success here. And Malik Willis beating his old team is indicative of that. So congratulations to him.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm off of memory. I don't know if this is exactly right, but I think Malik Willis only attempted like 16 passes this game. I think he completed like 13 of them for 100-some yards, but he had like 75 rushing yards in the first half. Like, this is a game plan that was designed for a backup quarterback, and they executed it well, despite the fact that I think it was Josh Jacobs did nothing. But it's like they executed well, despite the fact that they're in this situation, and ultimately, again, that's coaching. And what we're seeing play out is if you have a good coach, you can put together a competent game plan against a team that, you know, can win some games but isn't great, you can win the game, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, I think the headline here, and you're right, Malik completed 13 passes for 202 and a touchdown, and then ran for 73 yards and a touchdown. I think it's easy to implement that game plan when you're going up against Will Levis right now, who looks lost at times and is not sure of himself and is just kind of throwing it all over the place. I think that affords you those opportunities. I think the Packers, we knew at the beginning of the season, had a really good roster. And what's playing out right now is that Malik Willis, the coaching staff for Green Bay, is holding the ship together after the opening night loss to the Eagles. Ripped off 2 wins so far, 2-1, waiting for Love to come back. And that's exactly what you wanted out of this stretch. Just hold it together, the schedule set up for it. And I think if you're a Packers fan, this is exactly what you wanted to see play out. The rest of the team gets to pick itself up, gets to figure out in practice. You rest your quarterback, he comes back, and then you're good to go. And so I think the real question now is, do you throw Jordan Love back out there against next week against the Vikings, or do you let him rest a little bit longer and just kind of play it by ear? So that's going to be the interesting coaching question.
That's a tough call.
Interdivisional game, like there's big implications.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want, because there's a lot of confidence too. There's something to be said for like the gift of hope. And if you throw Love out there and he's not fully healthy and then they look bad, the hope kind of goes out the window, and maybe he's not as rested as you thought or as healed as you thought. And so that's going to be the thing.
And the other side of that is Malik Willis. If he comes out, nobody expects you to win that game with how the Vikings are playing right now, and Malik Willis rushes for 70 yards and a touchdown and throws a touchdown or two, and even if you lose the game, you're like, once Jordan Love gets back.
I think that's going to be interesting for sure.
Boys, I had the Chargers beating the Steelers this week. I did. And it did not happen.
You both did.
The Chargers, they lost this game 20-10 against the Steelers. The Steelers' whole identity this year is based around their defense, which rightly so, because they sort of kind of maybe have Russell Wilson, who's never taken a snap for him this year in a live game. Justin Fields has been their quarterback this entire season, and I do have a question for you guys. Do you just roll with Justin Fields at this point? Like, if you were the Steelers, is that what you want? Because you're winning. You're not doing it beautifully. What's the alternative, though? Like you have Russell Wilson on a 1-year contract. You have Justin Fields on a 1-year contract. You want to bring Russell Wilson in here and see what he can do now at week 4 or 5 when he's finally healthy? Or do you just let Justin Fields just do the whole damn thing?
Tomlin's not stupid. The Steelers are 3-0. They're 3-0 with Justin Fields. And he looked pretty good this weekend. He didn't look like old Justin Fields, where he was like just kind of scrambling and chucking it randomly out of bounds. Like he looked good. The defense looked good. You have to ride with Justin Fields. I don't think you can bring in Russ at this point, just with how they're 100%. Trending. They're trending too positively in a direction for you to swap.
They're in a great spot, honestly, because if I think what we're seeing play out right now, again, to hark back on it, is coaching. You know, you have Mike Tomlin now, who has replaced the doofuses that have tried to coach Justin Fields in the past, and Justin Fields looks competent. I mean, he's not going to win the MVP, but he looks competent, and he doesn't have to score a lot of points with this defense. So you're either going to say, hey, Mike Tomlin's a good enough coach, we can make this guy usable and we can win games with him, or Justin Fields is going to turn into the Justin Fields of old eventually, and then you make the transition to Russell Wilson. But you're not going to do that when he's undefeated. There's no chance.
Yep.
Okay, then let's take this a step further. Get your crystal balls out. Do they ride Justin Fields into next year? I mean, and I know that there's a lot of football still to play, so I understand that, and this could go any way.
I think they do,
but crystal ball.
I think they do. I think he's.
You think they sign him to like a 2 or 3 year deal?
Because I think this is complementary football for what Tomlin wants to do with his defense. Justin Fields can make some things happen. As long as he can protect the ball and pick up some first downs with his legs, like that's really all you want to do. And in this game, it was total domination. And I know Herbert got hurt in this game. Also, the Chargers lost both of their tackles, who are also going to be out for some time.
Yeah,
they're hurting, and they get the Chiefs next week after they just got beat up on their roster this week. I think this game's more about the Chargers than it is about the Steelers, just because of how they've looked. But Fields, this game, man, 245 yards passing and a touchdown. They were moving the ball. It looked good. They were playing sound defense. And I think this is how Tomlin wants to play football. He doesn't need to score 30 points a game. And I think with Justin Fields with the Bears, he had to score 30 points a game. And I don't think that's in his wheelhouse. Like, he had to score that much because the defense was like so porous, or he had to create for the deficiencies with the line, which we saw with Caleb Williams this past weekend. Like, he has to make up for something. And I don't think that's the kind of player Justin Fields is. Like, he can make on-time plays. He needs just some good supporting cast, a good line, and then a good defense. So the pressure isn't on him. And I think he's slowly realizing the pressure isn't on him. Whereas we see with Caleb Williams in Chicago, the pressure is squarely on his shoulders to make something happen. And I think the 3-0, man, I mean, we say it's just 3 games, but the NFL season, I mean, it goes by pretty quick. And if you're already 3-0, it affords you a lot of opportunities. This is a team that's probably going to find itself in the playoffs. This is a team that can sneakily win a playoff game. And I think if you fast forward,
they do it again. Damn it.
Fast forward, now you can say Justin Fields won a playoff game this year somehow if they, sneak in and surprise somebody. So I think it's in the wheelhouse if you give me my crystal ball.
Yeah, and Alan said, this game's really about the Chargers, and it is. Their injuries were significant. We obviously hope, Herbert comes back healthy and good to go. But I just think this Chargers team is so overrated. They're riding the Harbaugh wave where everyone's like, oh, Jim Harbaugh shows up and now they win games. And Harbaugh's this great, guru who can change everything about a franchise immediately with the snap of a fingers. And they just haven't played anybody yet. I mean, they played the Raiders and the Panthers to start. They lose this game. I think this is a team that is going to be similar to what we saw out of the Chargers in years past. It's not going to get much better. And I think Harbaugh can transform them over time. But as of right now, we got to stop drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. Harbaugh's not he's not magic, right? He's got to use what he has to work with. And right now that's not much, unfortunately. This is a worse team offensively than they were last year.
Yeah, they play the next 4 games for the Chargers: the Chiefs, Broncos, Cardinals, and Saints. And there's a real possibility they lose all 4 of those games, I think. So, especially without Justin Herbert involved. So, yeah, 100%. I mean, with Quentin Johnston, welcome to the NFL. I know you've been around for a while, but you finally have found some breath of life within yourself to have some relevance. I don't know. I mean, this whole team is just kind of I think the Chargers are under I don't want to say a soft rebuild because I think it needs to be bigger than a soft rebuild, but I don't want to say a hard rebuild because you have pieces around you. So they're in that middle ground, and I do think Harbaugh just needs to get a couple more pieces before they can actually start to gain some relevance and traction here. I do agree. I think that it's the storyline thus far has been not looking at the opponents they played.
Yeah, the last 2 games total, the Chargers have completed 28 passes in 2 games.
That's great for my J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, that's great if you can just ground and pound. But I think that's why you have the wear and tear with the line. You're seeing these injuries pop up because that's how Harbaugh wants to
Joe
play.
Alt looks great though.
He does. He's hurt too.
Joe Alt.
Now he has a sprained MCL. Now he's going to be on the shelf for a while.
Yeah,
and it's like I just don't know if this style is conducive anymore. Like I think when Harbaugh was with the 49ers, I think that style worked. And I just don't think it works right now. It's just the way this league is evolving. The scoring's kind of down. You need to throw it because everybody's playing this too high safety shell coverage, kind of keeping everything in front of them. And I think it's a grind.
I'm glad that you bring this up though, because I had seen somewhere there was I think he was an ESPN talking head. I can't remember who it was.
Probably Mel Kiper
had made a. Yes, it was Mel Kiper, and he was talking about he's like they need to ban running a cover 2, and I'm just Like, he was serious about it. He was like making the legitimate argument that like the cover 2 should be banned, and I'm just like, what the hell? So I start looking at all the comments and I'm like, this is gonna be fun, and I start reading through all these comments, and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, do you know how many other things like the offense already gets? Already, like, you have to protect the passer. Like, everything is so like catered towards the offense, and it's like, and you're trying to take away the cover 2. And then the arguments that were like everybody was saying was, how about this? How about you just run the ball?
100%.
And I started thinking about it, and I was like,
for the Chargers,
yeah. And I'm like, why not? Like, we see all of these teams starting to get more into like the shotgun, like pat or air raid offenses, and like you have to throw it 30 to 40 times a game to win. And it's like, the NFL's like landscape used to be hard nosed between the tackles. You're running double wing, your smash mouth offense. That's largely gone away. Yeah. And I'm wondering, at what point do we see a resurgence of that to some degree, because everybody's running that shell cover 2 defense, and it works to stop the pass. But
here's the only caveat, because it should, on paper, you're like, okay, shell coverage, you look at that Sunday night game with Falcons and Chiefs. If you go back and watch the Falcons, there are 5 guys on the line, and then everybody else is like 7 to 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Like, literally everybody wants to give Mahomes shit for checking it down, but like, what is he going to do? They are literally begging you to throw it underneath or try to run the ball. And this is where running it would make sense. But the problem is the changes they've made to like preseason and with training camp and how much you can hit, and a lot of like those blocking schemes and pulling. Like, look at the Falcons, the same Sunday night game. They had a couple linemen go down because you're getting rolled up on. You don't practice it enough. There's a lot of timing, and it's tough. Like, it's tough to do that. You think of running it, it's just, we just hand it off and go. But those blocking schemes are pretty intricate, and it's tough for these linemen if they don't get the reps in preseason to do that. And I think that's why you're seeing scoring down. You're seeing a lot of things down. And now it's just, all right, well, I'm just going to play cover 2. I'm going to play this shell coverage and keep everything in front. So I think theoretically, yes, running should, but they got to give these teams the ability to also practice it, which I don't think the NFLPA will do too. So it's like we're in this impasse in scoring, because Sunday, I know we're an NFL podcast, but honestly, like, the last 2 weekends have been pretty much snoozers, top down. If you're just talking about excitement of games, of like interest, there wasn't any games I'm like, oh my God, what a fun game to watch. This game was, for all intents and purpose over. You go up top to down. It's like, there's just so many games you're like, this is just not fun. Like, the scoring is down. Like, there's nothing dynamic really happening. It's very controlled, long drives, and it's like, I don't know, man. They got to do something, because I think the product is starting to show. And then you couple that with the flags that we're seeing every game. Like, when you're talking about the amount of penalties and how it influences a game, you have a problem. You just have a problem with the product, because it's not allowing the players to do what they should be doing, and it's frustrating. And I think that's Mel Kiper. I think banning the defense is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But you have to do something, because the product itself is lacking a little bit, because you're just not seeing production. You're not seeing anything.
One of the things too that is kind of hand in hand with what you said is the fact that defensive players now, and everyone gives football shit because it's like, oh, we're going to make it impossible to play defense, blah blah blah. We want scoring. But defensive players are so much more athletic now than they ever were in NFL history. Yeah. You have linebackers who weigh 250 pounds and run 4.3 40s. I mean, so when you're trying to develop a run scheme to try and counteract this shell coverage, okay, that doesn't account for the fact that you've got people like Chris Jones, who is a gigantic human being who runs a 4.5, and then you've got a second layer of linebackers that are huge and run 4.3s. Like, it's so much harder to do everything in the NFL right now, just because, we've seen increases in training and all of the science behind it and nutrition. And now you have just these freak athletes that are just more athletic than ever before. And so when you have those sorts of people that you're trying to scheme against and block against, it's like, okay, you're not accounting for the fact that the guy on the other side of the ball is like superhuman, and he is going to do things that were never possible even 10 years ago.
I have a solution. I just came to me. Get rid of all the NFL players, and we take average Joes such as ourselves and put them out there. You have to. We'll get rid of all of these pro athletes. You have to be in the workforce for at least 10 years.
Just dads,
and you have to have had at least 3 different career jobs, and then you get drafted to go play in the NFL. You cannot be over 6'4". You cannot weigh over 300 pounds. I think the entertainment value would be much better. So
It would be
I'm
funnier.
just throwing it out there.
We're just going to
It would
see
be way funnier.
30 to 40-year-old dads tearing their hamstrings
Tear their ACLs.
like all day. That's basically what you want to watch. I don't know. I think it's
You get
I think Scotty,
Good.
what you said was pretty spot on. I'll send you guys an article that I had seen, but it was basically saying the same thing. Like the size of the football field has never changed from the beginning to now.
Maybe we need to change it.
The size of the football field has
200
never
yards.
But I think what's happening is that the offense that we saw even when Mahomes came into the league, where you're just chucking all over the place. I think defenses have evolved. They're like, fine, go 18 plays. You're going to make a mistake at some point. Fine, go all the way. You're going to get a penalty at some point. And I think that's what's highlighted now in the NFL is penalties, because these offenses are on the field. You're grinding out a drive forever now, because these defenses do not want to give anything up over the top, and they don't have to. And it's hard to play defense as a DB now, and I think that's just where we're at. It's a little frustrating just because we want to see touchdowns. And it sucks when it's like these low scoring games. I want like scoring in the 40s and 50s. I don't like 20 to 10. I don't like 17 to 13. Like that's boring as shit.
How do you feel about 24-3? Watching the Dolphins play against the Seahawks this last week. That was something.
Well,
Wouldn't call it fun.
I think we predicted that with Tua not being there, and then Skyler got knocked out. I think that's pretty much, we all saw that coming. The one note I was going to have was the Dolphins have yet to lead at any point in any game this season. So you go from last year, the Dolphins being the top offense in the NFL the whole year, scoring at will. They famously put up 70 points against the Broncos or whatever that was. And now you have this year, and they have yet to lead in any game. And I'm like, oof, that's a tough look
wild.
when we talk about
and
coaching being front and center so far these first 3 weeks.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this game, but I do want to ask you guys, watching, or I don't even want to call this a football game because it was disgusting. It wasn't on. I didn't really care to even tune into it. Does it make you a little bit more comfortable saying Tua was a good quarterback? No.
Because we saw the first half of the game before he went out with a concussion when he looked just totally inept. I mean, this is an offense. I mean, obviously we know Tua's ceiling, which is the best offense in football. So, he can participate in that with the weapons that they have. But I saw so many people saying, like, oh, well, clearly Tua's not a system quarterback because look how terrible they look without him. It's like, well, did you see how terrible they looked with him? Like, it was bad. This is a team that just needed more time to figure it out for whatever reason. Tua, I hope he comes back healthy and he lights the league up, but it's clear that he needs more time on the field to put this together because that half of football in the game that he went out was atrocious.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
We see Snoop Huntley next week, right?
I hope so.
Pro Bowl MVP.
Yeah, why would you not put in the Pro Bowler? You're absolutely right. That makes perfect sense to me.
You should.
You should put in the Pro Bowler.
We did get to see, I think it was Skyler Thompson's ass. It was either that
somebody's
or the other
ass.
Guy. It was nice. I was like, dang. Now this is entertainment.
The picture I saw on Twitter, I was damn near reading his thoughts with how I could see right into his butthole. I was like, I'm looking right through him. I'm reading him right now and just staring down the barrel of his butt.
It was nice. I enjoyed it. Talking about barrels, let's talk about the Red Rifle, Mr. Andy Dalton, because he shot really and killed the Raiders, 36-22. I think this is the worst thing that could have happened if you're look. I know there's not a lot of Panthers fans out there because it's a mutiny, they've jumped ship. But for those that are still Panthers fans, this was the worst thing that could have ever happened to you.
Yeah,
is Andy Dalton comes in and he wins the game, and I think I figured this out. The Raiders actually did this on purpose. They're playing some 4D chess here. They intentionally threw the game just to make Panthers fans and the whole organization that much more of a disaster. I think they did this on purpose because they're like, we want to just completely F them over and make every decision they've ever made. We want them to question it here. So that's my thoughts. I can believe that Andy Dalton won this game actually because I think of Alan, I think of you and prior conversations we've had, there's no film on this guy. right? And I think that is a huge.
14
Well, there's
years
no
worth.
film on them with the Panthers. Let me
Yeah,
preface by saying. So I think that probably helps, but this doesn't help Bryce Young.
No,
This was the
Terrible look.
worst thing that could have happened to him.
Oh, he was probably like, before the game started, Bryce Young had to have been like, all right, let's see how you do. Good luck out there. You get no help. And then he's like, the score is not very indicative of how lopsided this was. This was over, and the Raiders put up some points late, but this was over early. And to see Andy Dalton go out there and make it actually work, he's probably like, oh, that's what we were supposed to be doing. I get it now. So, shit, that sucks, because I don't know how you even.
What do you do?
You can.
What do you do
right now? You can. Right, the percentage chance of them going back to Bryce Young right now is near 0. Right now.
Yeah.
Just because you know you can never go back. You can't go back now.
Well, you could. I don't think you could go back before. I think the second you bench him, I saw some reports saying that they've denied like several trade requests already for Bryce Young, which I don't know what. Maybe they were offering him like a stick of gum or whatever. I don't know what the actual trade
on
was.
The gum, I would take it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like at this point in time, okay, you've admitted that you made this mistake, a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake for your franchise, and all the trades that you made in order to acquire Bryce Young. Obviously, it's not working out. You benched him. You've already decided it's over. Like, it's time to move on. You gotta ship him off and try and move on to the next chapter. I'm also a little conflicted though, because everyone's like, oh, see, Bryce Young was terrible. Andy Dalton comes in and he can run the. Well, Andy Dalton's been in the league for 14 years. He's got a little bit more experience playing football. Bryce Young has had to learn under this terrible regime. So it's like, part of me is like, okay, Bryce Young, I think he might be able to find success somewhere else, like we've seen many other Panthers quarterbacks do at this point in time. It's not surprising that Andy Dalton comes in and does better just because he's got more experience. He's a veteran. He's able to make more out of nothing. And obviously the bar was through the floor with Bryce Young. Yeah. But I do think that Bryce Young is done in Carolina. I'm surprised they haven't traded him already.
There's a couple things that come to mind here based on what you had previously said. First and foremost, look at all the other quarterbacks that have come and found success, not in the Panthers organization. Sam Darnold, right? Like, he's looking good, and I don't want to call him a success story, but he's finding success. Baker Mayfield, another great example of somebody that didn't work out at the Panthers and now has found himself in a rather nice spot with the Bucs. And are these quarterbacks upper echelon? Absolutely not, no. But they're finding success with other franchises, and you look at the situation, and Alan, we didn't get to talk about this last week due to time constraints, but you look at the situation that Bryce Young was put in, I truly feel bad for the kid, because not only does nobody want to go and play for the Panthers, but he's played, I'm trying to think mathematically here, 20 to 22 games, I think 22 games, 20 games, I think, in his career, and I'm ballparking that in my head. He had played 20 games in his career. This was his third head coach in 20 games. As a rookie and second-year quarterback in the NFL. Do you know, like, I cannot fathom how difficult it would be to try and be coached under 3 different coaches in that short amount of time while also trying to get up to speed into what the NFL is. It seems like a near impossible task. So I truly do feel bad for Bryce Young. As far as his future, it's looking bleak. Like, I don't think you can pull him back out there unless Andy Dalton gets hurt, and then you kind of throw him under there. He should have never been starting to begin with, because you think about the development process that a quarterback takes, and we're going to talk about Caleb Williams and some of these other rookies. It takes time for them to get acclimated to the NFL. Look at Jordan Love. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for years and now is looking like a competent quarterback. And obviously we can't go back and go back in time and thrust him into starting, but it benefited him. People like Michael Penix are probably benefiting from not starting right now, because not only is that an immense amount of pressure, but you get to learn. You get to watch other people's mistakes without having the entire NFL stare at you and belittle you for mistakes that you've made when you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's the age-old question. Like, do you go the route of the, Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, where you have him sit for a while, or the Mahomes, where you have him sit for a year and then come in, or do you have the Justin Herbert, where you never plan to start him and he has to start, and now you think you have something, or you never know. I think what's very clear is that the Panthers did not develop him at all. I mean, that's painfully obvious. And I think where he has to go now, or the team that has to pick him up, is somebody that's willing to develop him. Like, he has to go to a team or a coach that's like, hey, we'll pick you up and develop you. I think the best he's going to get right now is trying to be a backup and just develop and learn. And he might have to go the other route. So his career trajectory, he has to pray, is going to be of that of a Darnold or a Baker, where he gets some opportunities to still, grow and develop, and not that this is it for him. Because I agree with you. I don't think he's gotten a fair shake. But if somebody comes in 1 week later and does the job way better than you did with the exact same pieces, it's hard for you to ever go back and then take over again. So I think now both him and the organization have to be looking elsewhere for him to continue to develop and get that career going, because it can't be with the Panthers.
We're talking about the pain points of Bryce Young. Let's talk about the pain and injury that are both the Rams and the 49ers organization, because this game was called the injury game. This game was second string versus second string. Both teams are decimated with injury. In fact, the Rams don't even have enough IR spots to put all their players on right now. That's how bad it is. So Rams win this game 27-24 against the 49ers. So happy. I am so happy.
Excited.
I am pumped. As a Cardinals fan, nothing better could have happened than the Rams winning this game. But a part of me, look, I have a lot of respect for both Shanahan and McVay, it pains me a little bit because I'm in the same conference as them, but I respect them as coaches because they are both incredible coaches. Are we watching two great teams finally fall off the cliff here? And I know that it's week 3, but is that where we're headed right now? Or do we think that they just got to get healthy? Or do we think that they're past the point of being able to get healthy and they're just old?
I think two things can be true at once. If you have both of these teams with complete rosters, I think both of them are very good teams. I said it at the beginning of the season, I think the Rams are a Super Bowl contender this year, but obviously they need their weapons to do that. This game was honestly one of the more exciting games of the week, despite the fact that we saw a shitload of backups playing, which I don't know if that made it more exciting, but I took the Rams to win this game, and right when the game kicked off, I was like, that was so stupid. Like, they have nobody. But it's like, well, the 49ers also have nobody, so I don't really know what to do. So, like, which of these awesome coaches am I going to bet on? And the Rams ended up pulling it out just because, they got some grit. But ultimately, I'm not sure that we can assuming that they can get healthy, both teams. And I think they will. I don't know if they'll ever be completely healthy given the age of their key pieces, but they're going to certainly be healthier than they are now. I really do think that both of these teams can make a significant run in the playoffs. They're both capable of doing that.
Javon Hargrave's out for the season, by the way.
Yeah. This is so the 49ers did this a few years ago. That's how they got Bosa. They basically, everybody died, and then they were able to get Bosa. And now that's why their roster looks the way it looks. I think the Niners are probably just going to do that again. They're probably just going to do that again, where they're going to get a high draft pick just because of the injuries. They're going to have to rest people, sit people. They may not make the playoffs, and it's going to be due to injury. And I think I think the outlook, if you're a 49ers fan, is still good. I think if you're a Rams fan, I just don't know, because you don't know how much longer you have with Stafford. And a lot of this was predicated on Stafford having these weapons and making a push. And Aaron Donald's already retired. You're just waiting on Stafford to retire. And if Kupp and Nakua can't stay on the field, you just got all these, you can't keep an offense together. That's not incentivizing for Stafford to stay around any longer. And how much longer is he going to want to do this? So I think if you're a Rams fan, you're probably more concerned for the long term, because this looks like the end. It looks like you got your one Super Bowl. Now this team's going the other direction. And if you're a 49ers fan, you're like, all right, well, maybe we'll get another high draft pick and we'll run this back the next year.
Which, if I was a Rams fan, I'd still be pretty happy, right? Like, you did what you set out to do. The mission was a success. Sean McVay's also talked about retirement too, which I'm fine with. Like, I love Sean McVay. I think he's good for football. So for the sake of football, I don't want him to leave. But for the sake of the health of my mental being, I'm totally fine with it. I do think, I agree with you. I think the 49ers are fine, right? I think that they're going to, Kyle Shanahan is an absolute mastermind. He's going to get it figured out. They signed Ayuk, who was not great last week, but they're going to sign Purdy. Like, things are the trajectory of what that team is going to be is still fine. The Rams, there's some issues there, and there's a lot of things to figure out there, and it's more of a question mark.
I can't wait for McVay to retire and then come back and fill in for Andy Reid when Andy Reid retires. That's going to be so fun.
If that happens, I'll be a Chiefs fan. I'll just say that right now. If that happens, I will be a Chiefs fan. Let's go over to the Cardinals. We're talking about my team. Cardinals lose to the Lions, 13
It's both
to
your
20.
teams.
I know. I was rooting for the Cardinals, and honestly, like it was something. I was a Lions supporter last year. I was rooting for them. I said I wanted the Lions to do well. I never watched the Cardinals and the Lions play against each other. And I didn't know mentally how I was going to feel, because typically when the Lions are playing, I'm rooting for them, right? I like Dan Campbell a lot. I respect the hell out of him. And I was like, when this game was kicking off, I'm like, how am I going to react? How am I going to process this? I got mad at Dan Campbell, boys.
Ooh.
I got really mad at
Music
Dan
to
Campbell.
Scotty's
I love Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Always have.
I was very adamantly cheering and screaming for the Cardinals whenever anything great was happening, and I felt at peace that I was like, no, this is my team. Like I'm not a Lions fan. Like I'm not rooting for the Lions here. Dan Campbell went for it on 4th down, and I've always been an adamant supporter of Dan Campbell on this show, but I've never gone against him when he's gone for it on 4th down. In the rage and the fury that I felt when he went for it, I was like, you scumbag piece of shit. I was like, you're going for it here. I'm like, you are a moron. And I hated it. I hated the whole thing. And I felt very self-conflicted, because historically, throughout every single time we have talked about Dan Campbell, I've loved it. But being on the other end and having to go through the mental stressors of trying to stop him on 4th down was not something I enjoyed. So,
well, I hate to break it to you, bud, but their kicker missed an extra point in this game. I'm not sure he's ever going to punt the ball again. I think he's going to go for it on 4th down no matter what. The kicker got in his good graces over the first couple weeks, and then bam, stabbed him right in the back. Dan Campbell, he hates kickers even more than ever now.
Yeah, I'm still drinking the Kool-Aid, boys. Like, I'm still holding out hope for the Cardinals. Like, we're losing games. We lost to the Bills and we lost to the Lions, but we beat the Rams. But all these games have been pretty like close, and or like we're in it, and it's been fun to watch. And I'm still really scared, because I mean, even just sitting here talking with you guys, I'm like kind of talking myself into the fact that we could go to the playoffs this year, and I don't want to get my hopes up to be let down, but that's really where the stock market price for me is trending, and I'm afraid. And I do think we got fucked over on this game, because we had a pick 6 that was called back, and this more than anything else makes me believe that the NFL is scripted.
Well, here's the thing: the pick 6, the whistles were blowing before the ball was thrown, 100%. You can go back and watch it in slow motion. So yeah, it was bullshit. It came right down to the wire.
The whistle should have never been blown, though.
Listen, we should do a poll question. Let's do a poll question. We need to put it out there. Does any NFL fan actually believe that their team straight up lost, or is there always some tomfoolery with the refs or the NFL being scripted? I don't think there's an NFL fan that's willing to admit that they just got beat ever.
Well,
ever.
We just got to make sure we pull the Panthers fans
ever,
because they're not going to blame it on the refs. Are about number 7,000 on the list of reasons why they lose.
I think
every
David
week.
Tebber's probably at the top.
So one team in the NFL doesn't believe that they were screwed.
No, I do. I think it shouldn't have been thrown, but I will say the Lions played a good game. Like I am not going to sit here and say there are other games that I know we're going to talk about that I think the refs play a more integral role. This was the one thing that I just was very blatantly like, you got to be shitting me. But I didn't throw a fit about it. I was just a little irritated, but I was like, whatever. I don't have anything else I want to say unless you guys. Actually, I do have one more thing I want to talk about with this, and we're talking about the refs, and we were talking about the refs earlier, and I find it really funny. Like, so Marvin Harrison, our rookie star wide receiver, Kyler Murray was just peppering him and just throwing it up for him so much. And I wrote this down here because I wanted to talk about what you were talking about earlier, Alan, of like all these, the refs throwing flags and all these pass interference calls and all this stuff. And I'm watching this game and I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Like, Marvin Harrison is in double coverage. And look, he's a tall, big dude. Why in the hell are you throwing that ball? And then it made me realize I think he's just trying to get some pass interference calls here. And that's really primarily, I think, what his objective was like, let's throw it up. let Marvin try and make a jump for the ball, and let's get the PI call and move it down the field. And so I just want to bring us briefly back to the conversation we were having earlier about all of the ref things going on. Can you not also say that the offense, like that, I do think is a thing that a lot of players try and do, like, or a lot of quarterbacks
100%.
try and do, is like, let's just try and get the pass interference call here.
It is an
Is it
integral
right?
part of the 2-minute drill, because even in the Chiefs-Bengals game, when that pass interference was called to allow Kansas City to kick the game-winning field goal, that route is designed for the 2-minute drill to specifically draw a pass interference. I mean, that's just the way it's drawn up. You see it all the time on the sidelines where the quarterback underthrows the ball, the receiver has to come back through the defender to get it, and bam, pass interference. Like that's exactly why those things exist. So it's specifically drawn up by offensive coordinators.
100%. They know
I think it's bullshit.
Everybody knows it. The team that we're going to talk about next, if the NFL was rigged, the Cowboys 100% would be number one on the list of the NFL to make sure that they're winning. Like, if the NFL was truly rigged, it wouldn't be the freaking Kansas City Chiefs.
You think?
Kansas
Let's talk
City,
about it.
Missouri.
Cowboys lose this game 25-28. So let's talk about the Cowboys Ravens here. Ravens finally get a dub, boys.
They almost pissed it away.
They came close.
They
They closed it
tried.
out.
They
They
tried.
closed it out this time.
They wanted practice. They were like, all right, let's make it really close again and see if we can actually close it out. What do you guys think? Deal. Let's try it. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Ravens. Like, I really don't.
I don't
I
know what
really
to think about the Cowboys.
Well, I think the Cowboys are garbage.
The Cowboys
I think
suck.
it's clear.
They suck. They're really
Why? That's what I don't understand. Look, I say why. I feel like anybody who doesn't know me is like, I'm trying to root for the Cowboys here. I just don't understand how from last year to this year you've gotten this bad.
I'll tell you how. This is a team that got worse on the roster and also got how much more expensive, because Jerry Jones waited to sign all these contracts until he had to pay like
Top
a
dollar.
ridiculous amount more for all of their star players, and they didn't add anything except for Zeke. And I don't think he's going to make the difference on your offense. You know,
he might make the difference, and like he could be the catalyst for all the failure that this team is seeing.
I don't know. It just seems like this organization has completely fallen apart in recent years, and like they don't make any right decisions ever about anything.
Well, there's no creativity on offense. It's like, all right, we're going to drop back. Dak's going to read the entire defense and then eventually throw it to CeeDee Lamb at some point. Like, that's just basically the offense right now. And you can't make a living in the NFL with that like one-dimensional offense. Like, nobody's scared of their running game. It's just Dak and it's CD. So when you drop back, you double cover CeeDee Lamb, who was visibly frustrated on the sideline as well. And then you come back, and then you're like, well, I wonder,
pissed.
I wonder why they're not scoring any points, or I wonder why they're struggling to put. It's all about. Listen, we talked about earlier the shell coverage, the two deep. Everybody is keeping everything in front of them, and when you don't have a way to move the ball consistently, you're gonna have happen what happened here, and then you're gonna have the Ravens on the other side with, all right, let's give it to Derrick Henry. We're just gonna pound it out. We're gonna get these first downs. Lamar's gonna make a play at some point. We'll call it good. The Cowboys just don't have that luxury. It's feast or famine. They're either throwing it deep and getting big chunk plays, or they're 3-and-outs. That's it. That's really all I get. So as a Cowboys fan, I literally don't know how you can watch an entire Cowboys fan or game listening to Dak just saying, here we go 8 million times, knowing that they're going to punt it really soon.
Here we go.
Like, I would be just totally frustrated.
Here we go.
I would be totally frustrated.
It is the most annoying cadence in football. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you can hear it you can hear it so much clearer than every other quarterback
Here we
cadence.
go. Here we go.
Terrible.
I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Well, Cowboys, they play Thursday night here. Cowboys Giants in a primetime game. What in the
Sick.
So
I'm
Cowboys
excited.
play the Giants, the Steelers, the Lions, and the 49ers. They could probably beat the Giants, but then realistically lose these next 3 games. Is Mike McCarthy on the hot seat? Are we thinking that he might not make it to the end of the season before old Jerry the Skinbag Jones kicks him to the curb?
He should have been on the hot seat after the playoff game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was a travesty.
100%.
Which one?
Well, the one where they got undressed by the Packers. Like, that should have been okay.
Is it?
Okay, let's talk about this. That's where I would have drawn the line. But definitely now. They just look awful. They don't look
So
just nothing.
I mean, over under. Does Mike McCarthy make it to the end of the season?
Does Jerry make it to the end of the season?
Well, does he have life alert? Because that's going to largely dictate if he can make it to the hospital in time.
I'm going to say McCarthy. I'm going to say he does make it, but just because Jerry is notoriously late at making decisions, not because they shouldn't get rid of him.
Okay.
He's so indecisive. Yeah, I don't know. I could see it both ways. I mean, if they're gonna continue to lose games, then yeah. But I think the Cowboys. I mean, ultimately their roster is good enough to compete with a lot of the teams in the NFL. I think they're going to eke out some wins and be pushing a playoff run. But if they're going to do this, I mean, they're just going to completely fall apart. Well, then yeah, you got to get them out of there.
Okay. I want to talk about one other coach, and that being Matt Eberflus here. The Bears lose to the Colts 16-21. Caleb Williams, 1-on-1, baby. Look bad. He has looked bad these last 3 weeks. I don't know what the Bears do here. I really don't. I have an idea as far as what you should do. If I was Ryan Poles, the GM for the Bears, and I looked at this situation, you fire Matt Eberflus in 2 weeks.
I don't know why they kept him.
Yeah. I don't either. I really don't. And we talked about this in the offseason, and I'm like, well, I don't know why they kept him. We said that we were saying the same things. You get rid of the guy. On paper, the Bears defense, damn good defense. The Bears defense is a good defense. Get rid of Eberflus, make your defensive coordinator the interim head coach, and then go on the hunt. And let everybody know you have an open vacancy. You are the first team that has an open vacancy, because on paper, this team is really good. This team is one of the best offensive units, aside from your offensive line, I think, in the NFL. And it is a shame what they are doing to Caleb Williams. The line is a problem.
Well, that's the point. Like, when you look at this team on paper, you look at all their weapons, you look at, the potential Caleb Williams has. We didn't account for how unbelievably terrible this offensive line is. Like, I don't blame Caleb Williams for looking bad. First of all, he's a rookie. He's got to figure it out. Everyone goes through that. But that dude is running for his freaking life. And he still threw for 300 yards this game. Like, he threw 2 picks, but he was throwing it around a lot.
He did throw a 50-yard meaningless bomb to DJ Moore.
It's true. But ultimately, it's like, with this offensive line, like, if we put just a compilation of the number of times this offensive line is just getting beat on the edge or just getting run through right through the center of the line, it's crazy. Like, this might be the worst offensive line in football, and Caleb Williams has no chance. No, if he even had one more second, I think this offense looks way better. But he is getting absolutely demolished. This line is the one thing we underestimated on this offense. We're like, they got weapons on offense. Yeah, they got a good defense. We underestimated how bad this line could be.
I wish we had MK on here to talk about it too, because I know he'd probably have a mountain of things to say about the Bears. I think it's multifaceted if you're a Bears fan. Yes, the individual components are bad. But I think also Eberflus obviously isn't developing any quarterbacks. He didn't develop Fields last year. He's not developing Caleb Williams this year. And also he's not being creative with the playbook to allow to give him some time. If you look at the more successful NFL head coaches and OCs, even if they have a bad O-line, they do things to make it where it's not that big of an issue, or they do a lot of like play action, or they try to like get the running back to chip, or they keep them in and do that. And they just don't do that. They just like run the offense straight up, have the line block how they're going to block, try to pick up what they're going to pick up, and then the rest is on Caleb Williams to make a play. And that's not developing him. That's not using your team to its fullest. Like they're trying to run something they're not right now. And Eberflus is too stupid to see that he can't run what he's running right now. He has to do something more creative, but I don't think he has the creativity in him to actually do it. I think it's literally an inability with him as a head coach to do that. And so I'm shocked Poles kept him for that very reason, because you knew you were getting Caleb Williams, and nothing about what Eberflus and his staff did the past year plus led you to believe that he was actually going to develop Caleb. Caleb Williams looks exactly the same as he did in college. Exactly the same. And also, by the way, now he's terrified because he has literally no time to throw the ball. So he is developing no pocket presence. He's developing no understanding or reads of the defense. From what I can see, it's just drop back, try to make a play, and let's see what happens. And that's Eberflus has to go, because there's no way this team is going anywhere with this coaching staff. And Poles needs to make that decision now.
The beard bought him some time. That's what happened.
He was hiding. Nobody could recognize him.
No, Alan, I think everything you said was exactly what I wanted to say, like verbatim. Like you're not developing Caleb Williams, and you're not doing anything to help him. Like, the offense is the offense. You go out there, you run the offense. And it's like, that's not how this works, especially when you have very glaring issues with your offensive line. Like, get creative. Do things to try and buy yourself time to open up the offense. But when the defense knows that you're going to do a 3-step drop back and make your reads every single play, and there's no creativity, there's no screens, there's no this and that, like it makes it really hard for Caleb Williams to even start to feel comfortable as a quarterback. So I think Eberflus has to go. And I was thinking about this. How fun would this be? Just hear me out. They fire Eberflus. Okay. No, not Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's career in the NFL is done. I do believe that. Mike Vrabel's being toted. Mike Vrabel's, he's hiding. He's around. What if Ben Johnson goes to the Bears? And he plays Dan Campbell in the same conference? That'd be pretty sweet.
You want this in the worst way.
Ben Johnson, what's that?
I said you want this in the worst way.
I do. I think Ben Johnson's a great offensive coordinator, and he is someone that a lot of teams have been like requesting, like, come interview. And he's very adamant, like, I will not go unless the situation's right. Like, I'm fine where I'm at. Like, I don't want to go, which is really smart on him, because why go to a poverty franchise where your likelihood of success is way less versus going to a franchise that has a lot of ability to build around and has a lot of talent already on it, and you go in and you set yourself up to succeed. So good on him. I think that'd be fun. I'm just throwing it out there.
Maybe.
I think it'd be a
Caleb Williams just needs somebody.
Great story.
He needs somebody.
Yeah, he needs an offensive line to start.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to you guys because this is the last game we have on the palette here to discuss today. You guys are both Chiefs fans. You won against the Falcons 22-17. I don't think there's much to discuss here. I think it was a totally normal game.
Scotty, do you want to just take this one, and I'll just provide support for you as you go about your journey through this game?
Well, you're setting me up as if I have this monologue. I mean, at the end of the day, Chiefs won the game. Obviously, there was one call in particular that all the idiots are going to focus on as if the entire game was played in 3 seconds and nothing else happened. But everyone's talking about this pass interference call in the back of the end zone, which was pass interference.
It was.
If you ask any Chiefs fan, they're going to tell you the same thing. It was pass interference. Nobody's denying it. It was a missed call. The problem, of course, is all these morons claiming that the NFL's rigged for the Chiefs, and they always get these calls at the end of games. The difference with the Chiefs and every other franchise is that the Chiefs are good enough to capitalize on the opportunities that they get from missed calls. Every team, in every game, every week, gets calls that go their way and stupid calls that go the other way. The Chiefs have the talent on the roster to capitalize on those calls, because we have to understand, even though that call happened, and obviously the Falcons likely would have scored a touchdown there, the Falcons had another offensive opportunity to get down the field, and the Chiefs' defense made play after play after play, despite getting flagged 4 times, to stop that from happening. So this is an offense, or this is a roster that is capable of capitalizing on those moments, and you don't have that across the league because the Chiefs have a very good roster, as evidenced by the 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. So it's ridiculous to me that we're like, oh, we can chalk up all of the Chiefs' success to these flags, despite the fact that in the Patrick Mahomes era, this is the 5th most penalized team in the NFL. So it's not like they're not throwing flags against the Chiefs.
Well, it's just because of your offensive lineman.
Well, Jawan Taylor doesn't help. And we could throw him off a cliff. I'd be fine with that. I think most Chiefs fans would be too.
You said you didn't have a monologue, but that was pretty good. I would hate to see what it would look like when you did have a monologue.
Bring up Dan Campbell again. Yeah. I've got plenty of monologues for that.
This is just hyperfixation on a team that everybody hates. Nobody the Chiefs are on primetime. Nobody singularly hates one team like unified under the NFL umbrella than the Chiefs right now, for good reason. I get it. It's annoying. You see Mahomes on all the commercials. Everybody's tired of Travis Kelce, blah, 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 blah. But what Scotty is saying is true in the fact that if you're gonna single out one call, like I said yesterday when we were texting, it's disingenuous to the rest of the game because it's a butterfly effect of all of the penalties. Chris Jones was called for a phantom or roughing the passer that led to one of the Falcons' touchdown drives. Now, if the Falcons ultimately win, the Chiefs don't get to go back and be like, well, this should have never happened because of this. But everybody's like, well, we would have been on the 1. Okay, Nostradamus. On the 1 yard line, what if Kirk Cousins fumbles? You're guaranteeing that they're going to score. They couldn't even get 1 inch when they had 2 tries. So you're going to tell me from the one they were without a doubt going to score a touchdown? It's
They're going to run
disingenuous
outside
to the whole
zone
process.
6 times.
No, and that's my problem with all of this, is that everybody wants to put everything in a vacuum and say, oh, well, they would have been on the one. Oh, okay, were they absolutely going to score a touchdown? You don't fucking know that. So don't say that one call was ultimately going to tilt it. Oh, by the way, they chose not to kick a field goal, which ultimately would have won them the game, because then they could have just kicked a field goal to win the game. Oh, and they just let Juju Smith run free across the middle of the field and score a touchdown. Or the pressure the Chiefs got the ball late to kick a field goal before half. Like, nobody wants to discuss all the plays that the Chiefs made to actually win the game. This is where I'm saying that most fans just can't cope with the fact that one team is actually probably good. There has to be some, like, in the stars, like interference from the gods as to the reason why this is happening, and everybody blames the Chiefs. Listen, the Chiefs had just as many gripes for some of the calls that were happening, but nobody's going to listen to that because it doesn't matter, because in the vacuum, that's not what works for them. That's my problem with it.
It's not the gods, it's the script writers. So let's get that out of the way very quickly.
They could be gods.
Well, I think to NFL fans, they are gods, but
sort of pseudo.
The NFL's labeled as an entertainment company. It's not sports. So in the event that there are script writers, I think Scotty would probably internally combust, because he'd realize that the NFL is nothing more than a glamored up WWE, and that would just
so here's my point then on that.
That would be sad.
What's worse? Your team just happened to lose on a game that grown men are playing, or that people actually in the back offices don't like your team at all? Like, what's worse? Your team just happened
people
to lose.
Don't like your teams
Yeah, see, like I think, like that would be worse to me.
People don't like your team in the back office.
Yeah, that would be,
because it's all about media consumption.
Yeah, that'd be weird. That would be weird.
Yeah, let's go back to the call here. Oh, look, it was a PI call. I thought it should have been called, and then the following drive, there was those 3 penalties, and I'm sitting there like, dude, what are you doing? I think the refs felt bad because I was watching. I'm like, that wasn't a PI
Those
call.
were makeups.
That wasn't
100%.
a PI call.
Which it's like,
yeah,
whatever.
I think they were, and they're like, yeah, we fucked up. We're gonna give them a couple here. Like, that's what it looked like to me, because I was like, that's really bad. This officiating crew did a really bad job, like all around. And it begs the question, like we had talked about it earlier, like, eliminate the calls, eliminate the flags. What do you do, right? Because that was clearly a pass interference call. Those were clearly not pass interference calls that were called. So, I don't know what the answer is here, and I'm curious.
Well,
like,
it's just
what are refs? What are they supposed to do?
It's just like any other job. It's accountability after the fact. Like, if you know that you're going to be held accountable to that, or the NFL is going to pay or not pay you or allow you to ref any other games after the fact because of how you graded out from the NFL office. Like, let's say there's full transparency, and they went through and they're like, hey, we gave this crew a D. Like, they're not getting their full game pay for this game, and they're not going to be able to ref a game next week. Well, now you would have refs on their game, but the NFL doesn't want to do that. They love this. They absolutely love this because it creates chaos.
Sure.
They love the banter.
It creates chaos and animosity.
They know you're going to watch.
I mean, we're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
So, but like, I mean, if they were ever to actually do that, like, then the game's completely penalized, and then the players on the far side of the ball, they're getting a flag thrown for pass interference for something that the ball wasn't even thrown their way, because, hey, that was pass interference. So what do you do? There's no right or wrong answer.
What does everybody say every game? You hear it on every network. We all talk about there's holding on every play. Like, okay, well,
there is.
There's holding on every.
Absolutely.
There is. So it's just I don't think there's any way to police it. There's no incentive to police it, and that's the bottom line. The NFL is not incentivized to police those.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, we always have to remember this is a competition. And yeah, the refs are kind of a wild card because they're human beings and they make mistakes. But the way to avoid having games come down to the wire based on penalties is by being a better team and executing your game plan better. So teams that complain about the refs with the Chiefs, okay, just beat the Chiefs by more than 2 points. Like, stop making the game close. And you say the same thing to the Chiefs. I don't remember the last time we had a game that didn't come down to the freaking wire.
9 in a row.
My heart's going to explode.
9 games
like being
in a row.
Chiefs fan. But so, like, all these teams just you need to take accountability. The refs need to take accountability, and the teams need to take accountability. Like, we cannot allow the game to be decided by some arbitrary call that may or may not be right in one moment. Like, we have to execute better to avoid that from happening, or to prevent that from happening.
You know what's funny, Scotty? I think you and I can remember the last game where the Chiefs were hosed because of a call towards the end. Do you remember what game that was?
2016.
Last year against the Bills, when they called Kadarius or whoever it was offensive offsides because he was lined up just like an inch, and then lo and behold, the Chiefs fans were upset about it. But then everybody was an expert on line play immediately thereafter. Oh no, come on, everybody knows that. Like you got to check. And like that was like front and center.
You don't even have to go back that far because you just go back to last week and you have all these idiots saying, "Oh, you can't call pass interference against the Bengals there at the last second. Like the game's on the line." Okay, those same people are
I was saying
begging
that hurt,
for that
I was
call
saying
to come
that
down.
hurt the Chiefs. The last one that hurt the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I would say you'd have to go back, which is funny.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna take this conversation. Chiefs don't look good. The Chiefs look like they're winning games, but the Chiefs do not look
Just survive,
like
baby.
a Super Bowl contender.
We said the same thing last year. I mean, the Chiefs
No, I
haven't
did.
looked good on,
Last year.
yeah, Chiefs haven't looked good on offense
did.
in a long time.
And we were talking about at the beginning of the show, like, do the Vikings look like they're a Super Bowl contending team? Who's going to beat the Chiefs? I don't know. Because if you look at the landscape of the NFL right now, it's a dumpster fire. It's abysmal.
The Chiefs are a product of their own success. Like their demise is because of how good they were there for a 2-year stretch on offense. And now they just kind of look like all the other offenses. So we're like, oh, they're not that good. And then you're like, well, who's going to beat them? And you're like, the Bills? The Bills are still number one in my mind for the AFC. I still think Josh Allen is going to have. I think Josh Allen is still going to have an MVP year. I think Josh Allen is still going to be, I think this is going to be his year and their year because of what the rest of the NFL is doing around them. Like everybody's struggling, but let's see if they can hold out in the end. But there's a short list of teams that you really think are going to be there. And I think at this point, everybody just assumes the Chiefs are going to be there because of what they've done. But I agree. Nothing looks sharp. Patrick Mahomes to me looks like he has lost some velocity on his arm. Like the ball doesn't get there as quickly as it normally does. He looks a little rushed on a lot of things, and it could be many factors.
It's the beer gut
that contribute. But
yeah, it's having kids, man.
Who knows? Who knows?
Number 3's on the way, dude.
Who knows?
What about the Falcons? I know that let's put the call aside. Let's put all the ref talk aside for just a moment here. Let's talk about the Falcons.
I still think the Falcons are a great team.
Okay.
I think their entire game plan was fucked by the fact that the Chiefs have Spagnuolo and he demolished their outside zone. I think if you get Bijan had like 36 yards rushing this game on 16 carries. Yeah. If you are a defense that can hold Bijan Robinson to under 50 yards rushing, they're not going to be able to put anything together on offense. I think the Chiefs played an exceptional defensive game, and not every team is going to be able to do that. I still think the Falcons are my favorite to come out of the NFC, or to come out of the NFC South.
Well, Scotty's here thinks that the Falcons are in line to win the NFC South. What do you think? You think Kyle Pitts no matter what? Question mark.
I think they're the most probable option at this point. I think the Bucs, you don't know if against the Broncos is what's going to happen. If that's what's going to happen to the Bucs, then hell no. But I mean, we said that it's the more probable. But I went with the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs are still going to be it for me until something. I mean, listen, the Falcons are 1-2. I mean, it's
do the Saints not scare you guys?
Mm-mm.
The Saints definitely look great, but at some point in time, I actually had a conversation with a buddy at work who he like casually follows football. He's in a fantasy league, and he was asking me who he should start between some Saints player and somebody else. And I was like, listen, man, the Saints obviously look great. I waited 2 weeks to start Rashid Shaheed, and I started him in week 3, which was terrible because he got exactly 0 points. But it was at some point in time, this offense was going to come back to earth at some point in time because all they're doing is running these play actions, and the play actions are getting their weapons open, and eventually people are going to figure that out. So I think the Saints are better, obviously, than what anyone expected, but they're not going to be able to keep up their production through the first 2 weeks for the whole season. I just don't think it's going to happen.
All right, let's do Kickoff Karaoke and get the heck out of here. Kickoff Karaoke, for anybody who's joining us currently, as it stands, I will be singing the national anthem live before the Super Bowl. Now, that could change because through 3 weeks, Scotty and Alan are tied, and I am 2 games behind. What we're doing is we are picking cover the spread for 4 games. So for week 3, start out, we have the Saints at the Falcons. The Falcons are 1.5-point favorites.
Week 4.
Scotty, you putting your money where your mouth is here for week 4, excuse me.
Amen, brother. Kyle Pitts no matter what. I'm going to go with the Falcons. ultimately, I do think that this is a team that had an opportunity. If they were able to get the win over the Chiefs, like, this team was going to be rolling. Their fan base was going to be fired up. They would have gotten all their confidence back. And I think the game, obviously offensively it didn't go as well as they wanted to, but the game was close enough that they didn't lose all of that momentum. And they're coming back at home against a Saints team that I think obviously through 2 weeks played really well, had a bit of a down week last week. The Saints are kind of trying to figure out how that goes. I do think that the Falcons are going to win this game, and I think it's going to be a big offensive game bounce back from the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm glad well, we'll see here. Man. Alan, who are you taking?
I got into the weeds on this one. The Falcons lost some pretty important linemen during this game, and when they went down, it showed against the Chiefs how they weren't able to get a push. And even on that last drive, they just forgot that they were down some important linemen and tried to run it again and got absolutely destroyed. This Saints front is, they're going to be pissed after what happened with the Eagles. I think that was a game they should have won, and I think they're going to be ready to play. And this is a divisional game; it's always rough. And I think the Saints are probably going to have the advantage on the defensive front and kind of control some of the stuff that the Falcons want to do.
I think I'm also going to take the Saints. The Saints defense has been electric. I don't think offensively they are nearly as competent as their defense is, but their defense is legit. And I think that, Scotty, you were talking during the Chiefs game for the Chiefs Falcons. You were talking about how, keeping Bijan Robinson to 50 yards. I think that Spags kind of gave the playbook to the rest of the NFL for how you stop the Falcons. Kirk Cousins isn't mobile. Kirk Cousins, and they've lost offensive linemen, so you're going to rely heavily on your run game and that play action, and I think that Spags has kind of showed their hand there, and I think the Saints defense is too powerful to let this game go to waste.
Well, certainly if the Saints are able to control the run game, they have a very good shot of winning. If Bijan Robinson is held to nothing, I agree with you.
Okay, well, I'm taking the Saints, and the Falcons are currently favored at 1.5. Let's go to the Vikings and the Packers as our second game. Alan, I'll start with you.
I got to go with the Packers.
Packers are
really...
2.5. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Packers are 2.5 point favorites.
2.5. They're at home. I like that. I like them. I like the hook. It's the right way because I think the Packers by a field goal makes sense. Give me the Packers.
Okay. I'm going to take the Vikings. I'm going to take the Vikings as the underdogs. I think this is a good underdog week for me. I got nothing to lose. I'm 2 games down. I think that I need to start diversifying my portfolio here. And admittedly, I do think the Vikings, Brian Flores is working that defense. And if Jordan Love is not going to come out this week, I think Malik Willis is going to be in for a rough handling. And Josh Jacobs didn't do anything last week either. So they're really relying upon people like Jaden Reed and the rest of their wide receiver group to make plays. And look, Matt LaFleur is great. He's keyed them or ran a lot of specialty plays to get them involved. But I think that if Jordan Love doesn't play, and I think there's a chance he does, and I think the Vikings walk away here. And I'm going to throw this over to Scotty now. You got the Vikings and Packers.
If Jordan Love plays, that's going to throw a wrench in things. But I am thinking if I were them, I would not play Jordan Love this week. So I'm guessing it's going to be Willis again. And there are a couple things that go into this. The more games this backup plays, the more tape you got on him, the more you're able to deal with that problem. And then on top of that, I used this logic last week when I bet that the Saints would win. And obviously that didn't work out. But until I see a weakness on this Vikings team, I'm not sure there's a team I would bet against them. I think the Vikings are perfectly capable of competing with every team in the league at this point in time. And until they show otherwise, I'm not going to bet against them. So I'm going to go with the Vikings as well.
Let's go. We're the underdogs this week. We're going to go to the Bills and Ravens. Ravens are 2.5 point favorites. I'm going to kick this one off and keep this underdog train rolling. I do think that the Bills are going to win this game. I think that the Ravens have... I'm getting close. I'm not going to say it, but the F word might be coming in the next few weeks here if the Ravens don't figure this thing out. Look, they've had a tough go of it these first few weeks. I don't want to say that they're the frauds, but I think the more realistic thing is the Bills are legit. Josh Allen is legit, and I do think that the Bills are going to come out and they're going to showcase that they are a top contender for a Super Bowl playoff run.
Yep.
And I think they're going to beat the Ravens here.
Yep.
Alan, you agree with me?
Yep, I'm with you. I like the Bills. I also like the Bills historically. This version of the Bills team has matched up well with the Ravens. Seeing Lamar, I think AFC teams playing Lamar is way different than when he has to go play NFC teams. Obviously, I think he's only lost one game to an to an NFC opponent. And so with that, I also just like the Bills. I think the Bills team this year is built to beat a lot of teams like this.
Scotty?
You guys are a little more you have a little bit more faith in the Bills than I do long term, but for this game I tend to agree. I think this game's going to get a little messy, and when games get messy, I bet on Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is going to do his thing, and that Bills offense, I'm not confident there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game, but I think Josh Allen's going to keep it close, and if you're coming down to the wire, I'm taking Josh Allen unless he's playing Patrick Mahomes.
Josh Allen, no matter what. Or no, it's Kyle Pitts. I'm so
Josh
sorry. Seahawks at Lions as the last game. Lions are 4.5-point favorites. I will let Allen go.
Yep, I got to take the undefeated team here just because that was my real only logic was they just haven't lost. So I'm just going to take the Seahawks until they 4.5 is quite a bit too. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched when you look at how they played so far. That's a lot of points to be getting even for an away team. And so I like the Seahawks to cover that. I mean, obviously I think they could win that, but that's a lot of points. I think a field goal game makes sense here, especially for the Lions late. So 4.5 for the Seahawks to cover.
See, here's where you're wrong, Alan, is you think that Dan Campbell's going to kick it, and he will not.
Oh,
so I'm going to take the Lions here.
Damn it.
At cover in the spread. I think the Lions are going to do that because they're not going to kick the ball.
Okay,
they're going to go for it.
So do three of us have each thing, like Scotty's Kyle Pitts no matter what? I'm going to be Josh Allen no matter what, and then you're just going to be Dan Campbell no matter what this year. Is that what we're doing?
Dan Campbell or bust, baby.
Dan Campbell no matter
Unless
what.
he's playing the Cardinals. Then fuck Dan Campbell.
Well, it's already it's done now. Smooth sailing.
Bastard.
Smooth sailing.
Yeah, no, now we can make amends. It's fine. Yeah. So I'm taking the Lions here. I do think that the Lions are once again another Super Bowl contending team, and I think that the Seahawks are. I feel more comfortable throwing the F word around with these guys. So I know that they're undefeated. I do think they're a good team, but I think the Lions are just significantly better. So that's who I'm taking. And Scotty, who do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you, Hunter. The Lions, this is a team that we have not seen the ceiling of yet, and this is a team that could very well be the best team in football right now, and we just haven't quite seen it all come together. I think the Seahawks are a little bit fraudulent. I think they're okay, but I don't think they're going to be anything special, and I think the Lions have a chance to be something very special. Any given Sunday, we'll see. Anything can happen, but I think if I were to put my money on it, which I am right now, I would take the Lions.
Okay.
And that is Kickoff Karaoke for Week 4. Gentlemen, it's been a hell of an episode. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all doing this again this week, and we'll do it again next week. If you have not yet, go check out LeatherBrainz.com. If you've been tuning in this long, go check out our website where we have a group of talented writers that are putting out daily articles over there, whether it be DFS or talking about Broncos stuff, which is disgusting, but you'll check it out anyway. As well as some other actually really interesting articles. There was one that was just released yesterday, and it was regarding NFL myths. It was a fun little read. It was something different, different from you need to root for this fan base or you need to root for this team because of this, and this. It was pretty cool. So go check out LeatherBrainz.com. And give us a follow wherever you might be at. Hit the subscribe button. Truly means the world. I love you guys. Let's get the hell out of here. We are out.
This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue. This is our Colts. Whether win or lose, we love them. For the shoe, Colts forge. Let the world hear us now. This is our team. Go Colts.